Haunted by blood, the sinister tale of Caleb, the slave who hanged 10 overseers in Texas. The wind howled through Cedar Bend like a soul wailing for vengeance, carrying tales of Caleb, the tormented spirit who had taken justice into his own bloody hands. He was a slave who dared to rise against his oppressors, hanging 10 overseers high for all to see, and now his ghost was said to haunt the very land soaked in blood and betrayal. Sarah, a 30-something single mother, had only been living in Cedar Bend for a couple of years. Her husband had vanished, leaving her with nothing but echoes of their laughter and the weight of their son Jacob's innocent thoughts. Their small home sat on the outskirts, a crumbling refuge surrounded by endless cotton fields now lying desolate. She often felt the weight of isolation pressing down, her days revolving around work and the simple routines that kept Jacob's spirit alive. But when night fell, a sinister air filled the space around her. The darkness outside became suffocating. Shadows twisted and turned, whispering something she could never quite grasp. On her late-night shifts at the local warehouse, Sarah felt the hair on her neck stand up as she heard whispers that echoed through the aisles. Words she couldn't catch but felt deeply within her gut. Some nights, even the lights flickered, casting long shadows that slithered across the concrete floor like fingers trying to pull her into the abyss. The other workers shared knowing glances when the stories of Caleb surfaced, dread threaded through their laughter. For them, it was just folklore, a way to frighten the children or pass the time. But for Sarah, it was beginning to feel all too real. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One evening, after another grueling shift, she came home to find Jake's chair eerily facing a dark corner of their small living room, as if someone or something was waiting. Heart pounding, she brushed it off as exhaustion playing tricks on her mind. But as days passed, the occurrences intensified. Muffled whispers circled her home, melding with the soft creaks of the old floorboards, and small objects moved as if possessed. Each incident drew her deeper into fear's icy grasp. But the worst came when Jake enthusiastically proclaimed, "Mama, I saw Caleb in the woods. He said he wants to take me on an adventure." Paranoia consumed her, and with trembling hands, Sarah scoured the fog-drenched thicket behind their home, fear clawing at her insides. "Jake!" she screamed, the panic rising as thick as the swirling mist around her. But there was no answer, just haunting silence hovering like a dark cloud over Cedar Bend. With each passing moment, the weight of accursed history bore down on her soul, the air thick with Caleb's wrath. She stumbled back, realizing she might not just lose her son. She might lose her life to the very shadows that rippled through the twisted tales of a town lost to darkness. Standing before the abandoned plantation, she felt an overwhelming pull. The whispers gained intensity, weaving through her very being. And just when she thought she couldn't take it anymore, a voice sliced through the gloom, echoing on the wind. "I come for you and yours." The looming shadows took form, tangible and terrifying, and she knew this was just the beginning. Dread settled like a thick fog around Sarah as her heart raced. The air was electric, pulsating with a looming terror that felt very much alive. She turned, urgency fueling her steps as she raced back toward the house. Her own breath was ragged, sounding far too loud in the oppressive silence of Cedar Bend. "Jake, please answer me." Each shout tore through the air, mingling with the wind that carried echoes reminiscent of Caleb's anguished cries. The shadows danced around her as she stumbled past the edge of the woods, feeling a suffocating grip on her lungs. Inside the house, the darkness pressed in, as if the walls themselves were closing. The room felt colder, a bone-deep chill radiating from the very core of the house. "You have to be in here." Her voice was shaky, but desperation pushed her to search every nook and cranny. The furniture loomed, towering shadows who seemed to mock her growing fear. She darted into the small bedroom that she and Jake shared, flinging the door open. The hinges creaked like whispers of warning. The room was empty, but every toy and picture felt heavy with potential doom, as if they knew the secret of the night. The hair on her arms stood up. Something was off, a sense that the house was watching. She could almost hear Caleb's laughter echoing through the walls, mocking her fear. Clenching her fists, she leaned against the doorframe, desperate to reassure herself. He's just playing, right? It's just a game. Yet, deep down, she sensed something malicious. Then, she heard it, a soft giggle filtering through the veil of silence. Her blood ran cold. It was Jake's voice, but it echoed in a way that didn't belong. A cadence that was too echoing, far too joyful for the mood that hung like a noose around her neck. "Jake? Mommy?" The voice came again, clearer this time, and laced with an unearthly sweetness. "Come to the woods. I'm having fun." "No." The word erupted from her throat, a primal refusal. She could feel Caleb's presence pressing against her, pushing her away from Jake. Panic bubbled within her as she sprinted back outside, heart thudding like a war drum in her chest. "Jake!" The woods seemed to inhale her cries. Each step felt like an echo, reverberating into the depths of that terrible past. Shadows thickened, writhing around her. The trees loomed like ancient sentinels, guarding secrets she had no right to uncover. Rushing through the thicket, she finally emerged into a clearing. Was it always so dark? The moonlight took on an eerie glow, punctuated by the flicker of something movement. Her heart raced faster. A shape moved between the trees. Was it Jake? "Mama!" His voice rang out again, clear as a bell, slicing through the cloying fog of fear. But something in her gut twisted. It felt wrong. She rushed closer, the sense of dread escalating with every step, visions of Caleb's hanging overseers flashing through her mind. She had come to ask for help, but in seeking it, she felt she was exposing a wound best left bound. In that moment, she saw him, Caleb's silhouette among the trees, arms wide open as if ready to embrace her son. What she didn't know was what bargains had been struck in the shadows, bound by the blood of betrayal. "Jake! Get away from there!" she screamed, urgency and fear mingling in a desperate plea. The wind howled louder, drowning out her voice, leaving only the haunting, euphoric laughter of a child lost among the darkness. And as the chilling laughter echoed back, she felt time slipping, snatched away by the weight of an ancient promise. But could she reach Jake before it was too late? The shadows deepened, and suddenly, Caleb's dark gaze fell upon her. It promised revenge, beckoning her with sinister allure. A new terror took hold. She was being watched. What awaited her next? The answer lurked just beyond the edge of the trees, waiting to unveil itself in yet another cruel twist of fate. Sarah's heart pounded against her ribs as she forced her feet to move. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but Jake was in peril. She saw the figure again, Caleb's shadow stretching impossibly long, twisting with the branches around it. "Jake!" she shouted again, her voice cracking, desperate. The laughter continued. It mingled with the rustling leaves, a sickening melody that filled her with dread. The shadows elongated, twisting into grotesque shapes. Each footfall felt like a stone dragging her deeper into peril. As she neared the clearing, she could see Jake, standing there small and innocent, bathed in the eerie light. His face turned towards Caleb. "Come to me, Jake!" Caleb's voice rang smooth and silky, like a snake hissing its deadly promise. "Feel the joy of the woods, my boy. So much better here." The words coiled around Sarah's throat, choking her. "Stay away from him," she screamed, lunging forward, instinct overriding her paralyzing fear. Jake turned, his eyes gleaming with a brightness that didn't belong to a child. "Mommy, look," he called, arms outstretched. "I'm having fun." Each word slipped past his lips like a sugary poison, sweet yet alarming. Caleb stepped forward, the moonlight casting a pale sheen over his features. It was still the face of her brother, but the eyes held a dark spirit. "They're so happy, these children. They play forever among the shadows. Sacrifice, A whisper emerged from around her, a chorus of forgotten voices, echoing through the trees. They sounded like the overseers, tormented souls trapped in the woods, each one begging for her heed. Remember us. Jake, please, she cried, holding onto her last shred of hope. Let us go home. But the words slipped away, lost in the suffocating dark. Caleb laughed, an unnatural sound that sent shivers down her spine. Why would he want that? He can be one of us. Forever. Sarah's breath hitched. The air turned thick with dread as she realized. The woods were more than just a setting. They were a trap. Her heart plummeted. Each tree stood like a sentinel, branches outstretched, ready to ensnare any who dared approach. Then she noticed it near Jake's foot lay a faded white ribbon, familiar and drenched in memories. It was the last remnant of Caleb's childhood, a relic of happier days that now lay twisted beneath the weight of despair. The moment she touched it, a violent shiver coursed through her, peeling back layers of time. Mommy! Jake's voice shifted, a more desperate plea mixed with something else, a sliver of the boy she knew. She felt her heart tear, a mother caught between two worlds. Sarah surged forward, adrenaline fueling her movement, as Jake turned to Caleb. I want to go home, he said softly, voice trembling. Caleb's grin morphed into a scowl, shadows swirling violently around him, threatening to engulf them both. No, Caleb thundered, stepping forward, fingers outstretched, dark energy shimmering in the air. Sarah dove, arms reaching, heart racing as she grasped Jake's wrist firmly. Run! She shrieked, pulling him away from the dark figure. They stumbled back, two against the weight of history. Shadows closed in like hungry wolves. She turned to flee, but Caleb's laughter echoed in the air, reverberating off the trees, almost fusing with Jake's breath. You can't escape what binds the blood. This is just the beginning. As they raced through the thicket, branches clawing at them, Sarah felt the darkness hot on their heels, a creeping dread wrapping tighter around her. The woods whispered things she didn't want to hear, secrets begging to be uncovered. Mommy, Caleb, Jake started, fear filtering through. But the moment was shattered by the sound of a rusted chain clanking in the distance, mixed with the singing voices of the past. What if the woods weren't just a prison, but a portal? The question hung in the air, sinister and heavy. They weren't alone anymore, and the realization struck hard. Something worse lingered in the shadows, waiting to be unleashed. What would she give to break free? And who would pay the price? The ground felt alive beneath Sarah's feet, pulsing with an energy that made her skin crawl. She held Jake tightly, the warmth of his small hand a fragile anchor in the storm of terror surrounding them. She ran, heart pounding like a war drum as the laughter echoed around the trees, sonic tendrils reaching for them. Don't look back, she urged, but Jake's frightened gaze lingered on the clearing, on Caleb there, a shape flickering between dark and light, a thin, menacing figure, no longer entirely her brother, but a predator cloaked in familiar skin. Stay with me, Jake, she called again, desperation cracking her voice. A hollow feeling filled her chest as she thought of how he'd been just moments ago. Innocent, full of life. Branches whipped at them, tearing her clothes, leaving thin lines of pain. Each step felt like running through molasses, the shadows around them drawing closer, eager to swallow them whole. The whispers grew louder, the chorus of lost voices now a shriek, pleading for release. Mommy! Jake cried, his voice climbing higher in panic. What is happening? She could scarcely form a reply. I don't know. Just keep running. Suddenly, an inky figure emerged from the darkness to their right. Its face obscured, but its eyes gleamed with malevolence. Panic shot through Sarah as she yanked Jake closer, turning them sharply to the left. The laughter morphed into a cacophony, different voices, each one familiar yet twisted. Sarah, one voice coiled around her, wrapping her in icy fingers. Caleb? She whimpered, caught in memories that should have been safe. But the sweetness of nostalgia turned bitter as they reached the boundary of the clearing again, now crowded with the figures of children, faces flickering in and out of view, eyes wide with strange and unholy joy. They weren't just playing. Their hands reached out, half-dressed in shadows, beckoning them deeper into the woods. "Join us," one child called, the laughter like chimes mixed with screams. "You can stay forever." Her heart stung with sorrow and fear, melting into a resolve. "We have to get out of here. Jake," she shouted over the terrible sound, trying to drown out the haunting calls. They tore past the children without a glance, but the forest felt thicker, pressing against her from all sides. The rusted chain clinked again, the sound now a tangible weight as if every link was a reminder of the chains that bound the lost souls. "Mommy!" Jake tugged at her arm, trying to pull her toward one of the spectral figures. "Look, it's so fun." "No," she yelled, pulling him back. She felt a shudder of recognition, and then a fleeting image of Caleb swinging from a dark knot in the branches. Laughter penetrating the air as joy played hide and seek with grief. My God, what had he done? Terror ignited anew in her gut. It hit her the children weren't just trapped. They were being sacrificed. This was a feast for something ancient, a creature that fed off souls tethered to the past. And Caleb was its willing servant. "Mommy, I want to play." Jake's voice cut through her thoughts, laced with an unsettling chill. "Jake, listen." She gripped his shoulders, shaking him gently. "This is not fun. It's a trap. You have to help me fight it." Fear seeped into Jake's eyes, a crack forming in the facade of joy. "Fight?" he echoed, uncertainty seeping into his voice. Before she could answer, the shadows surged, and Caleb stood before them, a monstrous smile splitting his face. "You see, sister? He belongs here now. He knows the truth." From behind him, shadows writhed and danced, grotesque figures forming an army of darkness. Sarah's breath caught. This wasn't an escape. It was a reckoning. "Run," she bellowed, shoving Jake ahead. She felt the pressure of time slipping through her fingers. If they didn't reach the edge of the woods soon, never escape. Caleb hissed, each word a cold whisper against the nape of her neck. "You're all mine." Sarah's heart raced as she pulled Jake along, but she realized the haunting voices had grown silent, and the air thickened with dread. Caleb's laughter rose like an inferno. Behind them, echoing through the trees, a relentless reminder of what awaited if they failed. A fork in the path emerged, branches yawned wider, opening two entrances. One shrouded in shadows, the other bathed in a flickering light. Which path would save them? Dread settled in her stomach. Time was running out, but what if the light was just another illusion designed to ensnare them? The flickering light beckoned on one side, cutting through the dark like a blade. It pulsed softly, almost inviting, while the shadowed path slithered like ink across the forest floor. Every instinct screamed for Sarah to take the light, yet the whispers twisted in her mind, painting it as a snare. "Mommy!" Jake was trembling, his eyes darting between the two paths. "I don't want to stay. I want to go home." A cold sweat drenched Sarah's back. She gripped his hand tighter, feeling the delicate bone beneath her fingers. The woods were alive, whispering secrets she wasn't ready to hear. "We stay together, no matter what," she murmured, though her voice fractured with doubt. The shadows lunged forward, a dark tide that threatened to sweep them away in a ruthless embrace. Out of the corner of her vision, Caleb's form flickered, laughter intertwining with cries from the lost children. It was as if the darkness had a pulse, its own heartbeat drumming in rhythm with the rising panic in her chest. "Run, Jake!" She thrust him toward the light. The moment they stumbled forward, the shadows clawed at her, cold and clammy, whispering her name again and again. But she didn't look back. Her eyes were glued to the flickering light, a beacon amidst the horror. They dashed forward, and sweat stung her eyes. Just a few more steps. "Mom, what if it's a trap?" Jake trembled beside her. His innocence made her heart twist painfully. "I know, baby, but we have to try." She swallowed hard and pushed forward, though doubt gnawed at her thoughts. What if Caleb was right? What if they wouldn't make it? The laughter grew distorted, burrowing deeper into her mind like a parasitic root. As they reached the edge of the light, it burst into brilliance, warming her skin. She squinted against the glare, but relief turned to horror as the brightness revealed a clearing, filled with motion, grotesque figures twirling and dancing, not children anymore, but lost souls bound to the earth, face twisted with glee and agony. "Welcome," they screeched, voices merging into an ageless chant that rang through Sarah's skull. They danced like marionettes strung to unseen hands, and slowly, she felt her resolve wavering. "Join us," the figures sang, eyes wide and pleading, faces familiar yet warped. They twisted her memories, morphing contours of joy into lambent despair. "Forever young, forever free. Forget your past." "No," Sarah screamed, pulling Jake closer. She couldn't let him hear their siren call. She stepped forward instinctively, trapped by fear, drawn to the macabre dance. She stared hard, shaking her head violently. "This isn't real. They're lying." Caleb's laughter boomed behind her, an echo forever masking her thoughts. "Fighting is futile, dear sister," he drawled, his voice dripping with seduction. "Why not join our feast? We celebrate here. With joy we take you. You can protect him, Sarah. Just take a step." A slender figure reached for her, the features softening into a visage she recognized. "Another child lost. Sarah, please don't leave us." A marble of dread rolled through her stomach. This was Caleb's twisted magic weaving a net to ensnare them both. "Run!" Sarah screeched again, feeling Jake's grip slacken. The shadows coiled tighter around them, ready to pounce, beauty and horror woven into one. She turned abruptly, desperate for another chance, for ensure safety. But the other path was swallowed now, thickened with despair. The step she took made the world twist again, exaggerating shadows, the figures merging into one swirling mass that screeched and wailed. "Mommy, I don't want to play." Jake's voice sliced through her tumultuous thoughts. He was retreating, fear etching lines into his small face. "Stay with me." Sarah's voice broke, desperation pulling tighter than the unyielding darkness. Then, something caught her eye through the light, a glimmer of another path leading deeper into the woods. One untainted by shadows yet untouched by light. Was it the answer they needed? "Jake, this way," she cried, a flicker of hope igniting in her heart as she started for the path. But the forest responded, branches snapped and twisted, holding them hostage. With every step towards escape, the darkness roared to life, the faces echoing a mournful wail, wrenching her the way back. Sarah hesitated. The cacophony of Caleb's laughter began to rise again, thick and choking. Just one more decision to make. What if this final choice sealed their fate? "Jake, come on." She felt the ground shift beneath her as shadows loomed. The last chance slipped away, panic seizing her breath. "Mom, don't leave me." Ahead, the path and the light collided into a single agony of hope and despair, screaming to be chosen. "Jake, I need you to trust me," Sarah shouted, scanning the clearing for any sign of safety. The grotesque figures danced closer, their faces melting into familiar yet twisted visages. She felt the weight of their longing, their despair clawing at her heart, trying to pull her into their world of eternal misery. But she couldn't. Not now. Not with Jake at her side. "Mommy." He pulled at her, the fear in his voice piercing through the hollow drum of the dark around them. Only a few feet separated them from that other path, but the shadows charged like a torrent of icy water, threatening to wash them away. Frantically, she glanced back at the dancing forms. "Stay away," she screamed, her voice hoarse and shaking, desperation pounding in her veins. "Forget him." Caleb's voice cut through the air, seductive and chilling. "We can be together again. Let him go. Just step into the light, and I'll give you everything, everything." The word echoed painfully in her mind. What had it meant to her? She'd sacrificed so much already, a mother's heart torn and frayed. "No," she screamed, gripping Jake's hand so tight she worried she might hurt him. The shadows lurked closer, breathing down her neck, a cold breath steeped in ghostly doom. This was a decision she had to make for both of them. The glimmering path beckoned untainted, unblemished. It seemed to promise an exit, a release. "Hold on to me, Jake," Sarah shouted, both terrified and resolved. On the count of 3, we run. Before she even finished her sentence, the shadows surged, a howling wind of despair ready to consume them. She couldn't let Caleb's voice reach Jake. She couldn't let them steal her son too. 1, 2, 3. They bolted towards the light, tearing through the thick air. Every heartbeat felt like a drum echoing in the emptiness as the shadows shrieked behind them in rage, clawing, trying to reel them back. Sarah could feel Jake trembling beside her, the small warmth of his hand a grounding force against the chaos surrounding them. But the laughter, it grew louder, looming over them, an invisible hand grasping at her heart. Just as they reached the path, she stumbled, catching herself on the nearby trees. "Come on, Jake," she urged, tugging at him, pulling him along as they plunged into the fateful glimmer. For a moment, the world around them went eerily silent. The cacophony of twisted souls faded. Shadows coiled just beyond. But here, they were bathed in a warm luminescence, an ethereal glow that shimmered in the air. But was it real? Glancing back, Sarah squinted. More figures emerged from the dark behind them. The glee in their contorted faces was unmistakable, a hunger for companionship, for souls to join their endless dance. "Mom?" Jake whispered, his voice a harsh whisper that cut like glass. "What if we can't go back? We have to keep moving," she gasped, breathless from adrenaline. Their fate rested on a thread, and it was unraveling fast. They stepped further along the path, every whisper in the wind growing more chaotic, tightening the noose of urgency around them. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision like dark memories refusing to fade. Each step felt heavier. The light, once a beacon, began to flicker, a heartbeat that signaled a foreboding end. "No, please," Sarah murmured under her breath, a plea that choked on her fear. Then, a sudden tremor pulsed through the ground beneath them, and the light wavered. They both staggered, eyes wide, realization dawning that they weren't safe yet. "Mommy!" Jake cried out, and she could feel every ounce of his small body shaking in fear. The laughter crested like a wave, echoing all around them. Caleb's voice emerged from the shadows, this time cold and bitter. "You can't escape me, dear sister. Fate has woven your paths together. You'll pay for leaving." A dark figure surged forward from the shadows, Caleb himself. The glimmer of light grew dimmer, swallowed as he stepped closer, malevolence oozing from him like a thick fog. "Now choose," he said with a smirk that revealed too many teeth. "Will you save him, or live forever in your own torment?" Sarah felt her heart race. The dark surrounding them twisted and writhed, closing in. This moment, this choice, it all led to something waiting just beyond the veil of light. "Jake, hold on tight." But it felt like the ground dropped beneath her as Caleb's laughter exploded around them. Drowning them in darkness, would she lose everything, or would the light swallow them whole? The darkness twisted around Sarah and Jake like creeping vines, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Cold sweat glistened on her skin, the weight of Caleb's presence pressing down like a funeral shroud. The world narrowed, each beat of her heart echoing like a gunshot, signaling impending doom. "Don't let go, Mommy," Jake wailed, clutching her hand with a grip fierce enough to rival any vice. His small frame shook violently, fragile and vulnerable amidst the storm of horror. Caleb stepped closer, the shadows swirling like a dark cyclone around his lean figure, each movement fluid yet jerky. "You think running will help?" he hissed, his eyes gleaming with malice. "You've always wanted to escape. Haven to you? But you can't outrun family. Stay back," she screamed, trying to shield Jake with her body. Every fiber of her being screamed at the horrors that lay in wait just beyond the flickering light. She felt the grasp of desperation tightening its grip, the shadows cavorting behind Caleb, grinning with malevolent delight. "They miss you, Sarah," Caleb continued, his voice dripping like honey, sweet yet rotting. "They want you home, with them, where you belong." The laughter, the horrific, mournful laughter, was back. Sarah could feel it ripping apart at her sanity, scratching the walls of her mind like nails on a chalkboard. It reverberated through the ground beneath them, an ocean of torment surging to consume them. She locked eyes with Caleb. Familiarity mingled with dread, a horrific reminder of a life once lived. "Jake now!" she shouted, yanking him forward with raw strength. The boy stumbled, but she dragged him toward the flickering light, the shrinking hope. The shadows loomed larger, whispering secrets and fears of betrayal, clawing at their heels. Suddenly, Jake yanked her hand. "Mommy, I don't want to leave you." His voice wavered, caught between love and fear, and for one eternal second, Sarah felt the ground beneath them shift again, an unforgiving tremor of fate. "Let him go, Sarah," Caleb taunted, extending his arms wide, welcoming them into darkness. "You can't keep running from the truth." The ground quaked, and the light sputtered. Panic shot through her veins like ice as she felt the very fabric of reality begin to unravel. Shadows twisted into monstrous shapes, mocking her decision as they pulled closer, whispering and chanting her name. "Trust me," she pleaded. They pressed on into the light, but it flickered like a dying star, each flicker eliciting a scream from both mother and child. Desperation blurred her vision, tears mixing with fear, and then all went dark. For a heartbeat, terror suspended in the air, thick and heavy. An abyss stretched out before them, the echoes of Caleb's laughter ghosting along the walls of the void. Sarah had made a choice, or had she? Did the darkness swallow that moment too? She blinked, and abruptly the shadows lifted. They stood on the edge of a vast expanse, a lake of black water reflecting a sky filled with stormy clouds. The light had morphed into a blood-red sun hanging ominously low on the horizon, casting long, twisted shadows across the ground. "What is this place?" Jake whimpered, fear dancing in his wide eyes. The lake churned slowly, waves lapping at the shores like restless spirits demanding attention. Each ripple sent a shiver through her as Caleb's laughter faded into the distance. "I don't know," Sarah whispered, dread settling in her stomach like a stone. Questions filled her mind. Had they escaped one horror only to tread into another? As they stepped closer to the water, an unexpected voice echoed from the depths, a soft, haunting melody blending with the sound of the waves. It beckoned to her, resonating with familiar tunes of the past. "Mommy, I don't like this," Jake whimpered, his grip tightening on her hand. And as Sarah turned to comfort him, the water suddenly erupted, and out of the depths arose figures, reflections of long-lost faces twisted by despair, their mouths forming her name, beckoning with each wave. "Sarah." An energy crackled through the air, as if everything around them pulsed with a life force both old and vengeful. She felt a cold essence brush against her mind, a whisper of something ancient and powerful that struck fear deep into her bones. A new horror emerged, and Sarah's heart raced as she faced this unknown entity lurking in the waters. What had she unleashed? The true test was yet to come, and she could no longer tell what awaited them on the other side. "Mommy!" Jake cried, his voice a piercing arrow into her soul. But salvation or doom hung over them just as heavily as the stormy clouds above. What lurked beneath the surface, watching, waiting? The figures rose, their faces twisted in agony, yet filled with a strange, magnetic allure. Each one was an echo of a life snuffed out too soon, seeking warmth in the unbearable cold. Shadows flickered and danced along the surface of the lake, casting grotesque reflections that writhed like intent snakes. "Where are they?" Jake squeaked, peering into the abyss, his innocent curiosity battling against the primal instinct to flee. Sarah felt paralyzed, a stone weighing her down as she fought the urge to pull him away. "Mommy, I want to go home." "Ours is the home you seek." A voice dripped from the water, the melody morphing into a cacophony of whispers that tangled with the wind. It was a chorus of past souls, their lament echoing in the depths of her heart. Chilling tendrils of guilt wrapped around her, tugging at memories long buried. "What are you? Why are you doing this?" she screamed, but the spirit's grip remained relentless. Each face that emerged seemed to wail with a tragic history, tales of betrayal and sorrow playing out in the shadows. They wanted her to listen. They wanted her to join them. The lake's surface bubbled violently, and a pale, skeletal hand broke through, grasping at the air as if searching for a lifeline. It was then that she recognized its owner, a face she'd known as a child, one that had filled her nightmares, the face of her grandmother, gasping for breath. "Help us, Sarah." The whisper floated through her, enchanting yet terrifying. "Bring us peace to set us free." "No," Sarah shouted, stepping back, tugging Jake closer as the water lunged forward, waves crashing against her legs, soaking her pants with cold dread. The realization hit her like a thunderclap. These were the manifestations of forgotten regrets, familial ties suffocating her with sorrow. She had run from this legacy, but it had followed her here. "Mommy, please don't leave me." Jake pulled on her, desperate and wide-eyed. She could feel his small heart racing, pulsing with the terror that mirrored her own. As she scanned the horizon for some escape, the distant laughter of Caleb returned, bubbling up from the depths of the lake. "Can't you see, Sarah? They're calling for you. Your destiny awaits. You can't fight it." In a surge of defiance, Sarah gritted her teeth, her mind swirling with the chaos that enveloped them. "No, I'm not like you. I want to join you." She screamed at the figures, shaking her head violently. But the darkness constricted, growing tighter, wrapping around her thoughts. A sudden wave slammed into her, pulling Jake from her grasp. She cried out, lunging forward, but her feet slipped in the soupy mud. With frantic movements, she reached for him as he flailed against the water like a caught fish. "Jake!" Her heart pounded. Every instinct was to break the surface and pull him back. Caleb's laughter grew louder around her as shadows closed in. Jake's cries mixed with their whispers, and she felt the abyss clawing at her soul. "Mommy, help me!" The faces twisted in the water, growing angrier. "Join us!" they shrieked, their voices climbing into a disharmonic symphony. "No!" She shrieked again, adrenaline pumping through her veins as dread rose up her spine. She had to make a choice: fight back or drown in the weight of their cries. With gritted teeth, she surged into the dark water, reaching for Jake, who was slipping further away. Shadows clawed at her legs, pulling her down, but determination fueled her. She had to save him, no matter the cost. And just as her fingers grazed his, the surface erupted, knocking the breath from her lungs. Her vision blurred as the faces wrenched in anger, and time warped around them, tumbling into chaos. "Let him go!" she screamed, desperation breaking her voice, as the truth clawed at her. Family didn't bind you. It could shatter you. But the shadows whispered promises of power, of freedom. If only she would surrender, what choice would she make? Would she succumb to the depths or fight to break the chains of her past? As Sarah struggled, the sky above the lake ripped open, and a surge of light broke through the storm clouds, illuminating her desperate plight. Yet, just as everything seemed to crystallize into clarity, a darkness surged forth, promising a revelation that could change everything forever. "Mommy!" Jake's last cry echoed, swallowed by the waves. What awaited them in the depths of that consuming darkness? Jake's cries faded until they were mere echoes, swallowed whole by the raging waters. Sarah felt the world slip away as the shadows enveloped her, dragging her further into the depths, where her pulse raced against the icy grip around her heart. Desperate, she thrashed against the tendrils, but it was like fighting smoke. Every kickback only pulled her deeper into the murky abyss. "Let him go," she gurgled, her voice strangled with panic. The cold wrapped around her like a vice, squeezing her breath away. The faces in the water twisted in a maelstrom of grief and rage, their eyes gleaming with hunger as if they were feeding on her despair. "Join us!" they screamed, their chorus rising above the thunderous waves. Each word clawed at her mind, gnawing at the remnants of her will. "No!" she screamed back, drowning it out. Sarah's fingers grazed the surface, reaching for the fleeting warmth of her son. A flicker of light danced on the edges of her vision, but it was quickly consumed by the swirling darkness. She surged forward, pushing against the weight of the water, willing herself to move. Her thoughts were a frantic haze. She couldn't let Jake slip away. Not like this. Not to them. The muse of her grandmother's pleading echoed in her ears, mixing with the other lost souls. Bring him back, the whispers begged, wrapping around her heart. They promised her answers, a way to heal the wounds of her past, a resolution to endless cycles of shame. But at what cost? The surface churned violently, and Sarah felt herself being drawn into the vortex. With sheer determination, she reached out again, this time grasping something with her fingers, something warm, alive. Jake! With one final, desperate pull, she yanked him closer, feeling the warmth of his small body against her. But just as hope flared, a screeching sound pierced through the storm, and the dark waters erupted into a cacophony of laughter. It was Caleb, his face piercing the surface like a vengeful spirit. Did you think you could escape, Sarah? He sneered, water cascading down his twisted visage. You're one of us now. You belong here. Suddenly, the whirlpool tightened, dragging them toward the suffocating heart of the lake. Every ounce of strength Sarah had left drained as shadows clawed at her, trying to sever the bond she fighting to maintain. Mommy, I'm scared, Jake whimpered, his small hands clutching her arm as she struggled to keep him afloat. Don't let go, she pleaded back, her grip tense around him. They spiraled deeper, the screams of the dead and the laughter of the wicked mounting to a terrifying crescendo. Just then the blinding light from above flashed once more. But this time it didn't fade. It expanded, a beacon of hope that bent the darkness, promising a way out. Sarah squinted against the glare, feeling it root into her soul, igniting something powerful within her. With renewed fury, she kicked and clawed against the pulling force. I won't let you take him. I won't let you win, she roared defiantly. As she swam toward the light, a surge of nostalgia flooded through her memories of laughter, love, and strength. No more running. The figures screamed, their shrieks betraying their dread. You can't escape the legacy. But legacy meant nothing if it shackled her from protecting her child as they burst free from the depths. The warm light wrapped around them, merging the shadows with brightness, shattering the darkness that threatened to consume them. But the faces didn't recede. They clawed and grasped, pulling at the edges of their newfound salvation. In that moment, Sarah understood. This battle wasn't just a fight for her son. It was a fight for her very soul. But somewhere in the swirling shadows, a new face emerged. It lingered in the periphery, watching, waiting with a dreadful familiarity. And a menacing whisper brushed her ear, the voice of her grandmother, now twisted by desperation. Join us. As they broke the surface, gasping for air, Sarah turned to her child. But the truth settled around them with chilling clarity. Their escape may have begun, but the true battle was far from over. What awaited them in daylight was a reckoning with a legacy drenched in blood. Would they be ready to confront the darkness lurking just beyond the horizon? The sun broke through the stormy clouds, casting a golden glow on the lake's surface. It shimmered like hope, but Sarah's heart raced with dread. They had fought so hard to emerge from the depths, and yet they had only partially escaped. With Jake clutching her hand, they stood at the edge of a truth that loomed over them like dark thunderclouds. Mommy, I don't want to go back. Jake's voice trembled, the weight of their close call still fresh. She knelt beside him, shaking with adrenaline. Neither do I, baby. But we're not done yet. Caleb, stop. You hear me? We have to be strong. Her throat tightened with the realization breaking free from the water had freed them only from the chains of darkness, not from Caleb's curse. He would return. The shadow of his laughter still echoed in her mind, intoxicating and taunting. They turned toward the path that unraveled before them. It was cloaked in soft grass and wildflowers, vibrant against the harsh memories pressing down. But behind them the lake stirred. Shadows thrashed beneath the surface, faces emerging from the depths. Distorted yet familiar, desperate souls tangled with regret. Mommy, look, Jake pointed, his face pale. There, rising above the lake, was Caleb. A twisted grin stretched across his features, laughter bubbling up like toxic gas. You can't escape what's inside you, Sarah, he shrieked, as the shadows clawed at the edges of the water, fierce and haunting. Keep moving, Jake. She pulled him tight against her, moving further along the path, clenching her fist as if she could drive the fear away. The light shone brighter ahead, beckoning her towards safety, but the dread wrapped around her heart like a vice. The tales of Caleb haunted Cedar Bend, but what they hadn't realized was that the true horror lay not just in the shadows, but in the bloodline, the family curse that tied her to him. She felt it surge, an ethereal tug that ran deep, a connection that shackled their fates together, and she shivered under its weight. "Mommy, what is gonna happen?" Jake asked, his voice quaking with fear. They paused, facing the light, yet she could feel the darkness close around them, like a noose tightening. "We'll figure it out, Jake. We have each other," she replied, clutching his shoulders. But doubts invaded her mind like thieves, dragging her toward despair. Kayla's laughter echoed again, maddeningly close. Caleb was not just a ghost. He was a remnant of what had come before, a reminder of the sacrifices that had been made, the lives lost in the pursuit of vengeance. The moment she started to turn, the shadows shot forth, a dark tide crashing against the shore, intent on pulling them back. "Run," she ordered, the word barely catching up to them as they dashed down the path. Their feet pounded against the earth, the rhythm echoing through her bone. "Hold on tight." With each pounding heartbeat, the shadows surged faster, the wind howling around them, whispering their failures, their fears. They could never run fast enough. They would never be free. The lake was an endless churn of voices that called out to her, and she could feel herself beginning to fray at the edges suddenly. The ground below them shuddered, a tremor rippling through the earth as figures began to rise. Dark apparitions surged forward. The overseer's Caleb had hung in that cursed past, now twisted, phantoms compelling her with hollow eyes, foretelling doom and inevitability. "Join us," they wheezed, their voices scraping against her soul. "No, I will not join," she roared, fueled by a primal instinct surging up from somewhere deep. She grabbed Jake's hand tighter, turning to face the onslaught of darkness. "We won T. You won T. Take him from me." She surged forward, pushing past disbelief, toward the light that seemed almost tangible now, tearing at the fabric of fate that clung around them. With each stride, she fought through memories of laughter and pain, shadows clawing at her heels, desperate to reclaim what they'd lost. "Here, over here." A glimmer appeared, piercing through the weight of darkness. The sun shone, brighter, illuminating an old wooden bridge stretching across the ravine. Sarah's heart quickened. They had to reach it. "This way, Jake." She and her son sprinted toward the bridge, heart pounding with a fierce urgency. But the shadows surged behind them, pulling her back as the figures hissed their discontent, their grotesque smiles revealing predatory teeth. "Fight, mother." Caleb's voice echoed, sultry and vile, sending a cascade of chills down her spine. "Running will only drag you deeper into my grasp." But this time, she wouldn't let the darkness win. As they reached the bridge, Sarah turned to face their pursuers, digging deep within herself, unleashing the plea that had simmered beneath. "I will not succumb to the past. I refuse to carry its burden." In that moment, a wave of warmth engulfed her. It surged from her heart, crackling with energy, wrapping around Jake like a protective film. Then, the light burst forth, expanding from the depths of her own courage, washing over Jake and pushing back against the shadows. "Mommy, what is happening?" Jake gasped, his voice a mix of terror and wonder. "Believe, Jake. Trust the light," she shouted, lifting him into her arms as they stood at the precipice of the bridge. With desperation igniting their spirits, they leapt. As they crossed over, the shadows shrieked in fury, clawing at their ankles like mad beasts. The rush of freedom filled Sarah's lungs as they soared through the air. Time slowed, and for a heartbeat, they were suspended in light. The shadows behind them were fraying, slipping under the warmth of their connection. With a crash, they collided with solid ground as the bridge broke beneath them, and the howling darkness surged away to a wretched retreat. They landed, both breathless and trembling, yet completely intact. The light enveloped them, pure and cleansing, washing away the remnants of their battle. Around them, the woods shifted into the bright embrace of dawn. The oppressive weight of fear dissipated, replaced with the aroma of wildflowers and fresh earth. "Mommy?" Jake's small voice pulled her back to reality. He gazed up at her with wide eyes, filled with a mixture of fear and awe. "It's okay, Jake. We made it. We're safe." She breathed deeply, wrapping her arms around him as fresh tears brimmed in her eyes. But the ache of truth hadn't vanished. They were free for now, but the legacy would always haunt her, feeding off her struggles. As they walked away from the lake, she felt a shift in the air. It was a promise, one of remembrance and resolution. Hand in hand, moving first toward the light of day, they stepped away from the past, ready to forge their own path. With every step, they ignited hope, knowing the future was theirs to shape a new beginning carved from the ashes of their family's regrets. And they would remain vigilant, unapologetically alive, until the shadows could no longer threaten to reclaim them. Sarah exhaled a shaky breath, glancing back as the sun began to rise higher in the sky, scattering the darkness from Cedar Bend. She felt the breaking dawn settle in her soul, a haunting reminder that the struggle may never end. But together, they would always find their way back to the light. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive chapter of our journey together. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help more folks find this story. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, theories, and reactions. And just don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us keep the momentum going.